Hi, everybody, and welcome back to a special edition of the Golodner Report. So, I want to go through a litany of things that have led to the undermining and the destruction of America by the Democratic Party, and then we'll call them out specifically. And I say this: when millions of illegals were ushered through in the southern border, you said nothing. When they abandoned millions of dollars worth of military equipment in Afghanistan, you said nothing. When they covered up the Hunter Biden laptop, nothing. When they passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill that failed miserably, you said nothing. When they forced Americans to take an untested vaccine, you said nothing. When inflation crushed the middle class, nothing. When they sent billions to Ukraine that went into the pockets of the people there, not for its intended purposes, you said nothing. When chemicals polluted the water in East Palestine, Ohio, you ignored it, you said nothing. When Americans were raped, robbed, murdered by illegals, you said nothing. When they implanted Kamala as the presidential nominee without getting a single vote, you were silent. When billionaire and anti-American George Soros funded dozens of elections, you said nothing. When they turned our classrooms into liberal bastions of indoctrinations camps, you said nothing. When they spent our tax dollars on inmates' transition surgeries, you said nothing. When they gave the citizens of Hawaii $700 after losing their entire city, you said nothing. When free money, food, and five-star hotel lodging was given to illegal aliens, you said nothing. When they came for our free speech, you said nothing. When DEI weakened the military and put our national security at risk, you said nothing. When they colluded with the media to push false reports, you said nothing. When there was open season on law enforcement and criminals reigned free, you said nothing. When they covered up Biden's rapidly declining mental state, nothing. When they groomed our kids in school and hid it from the parents, you said nothing. When the drug epidemic exploded and thousands died annually, you said nothing. When they accosted the Jews on the campuses of universities around the country, you said nothing. When they weaponized the intelligence agencies against Americans, you said nothing. When $45 million on diversity and inclusion scholarships in Burma, you said nothing. When they let men play in women's sports, you said nothing. When they chanted death to America and burned our flag openly, you said nothing. When they shut down our energy production and burned our flag and emboldened Russia, you said nothing. When the crime rates in America's cities increased, you said nothing. When they sent billions to Iran and inadvertently funded Hamas, you said nothing. Or was it inadvertently? 300,000 migrant children went missing and no one had a clue what happened to them. You said nothing. Joe Biden pardoned his friends and family and everyone else. You said nothing. When men were celebrated for pretending to be women, you said nothing. When they let a Chinese spy balloon sail across America, you said nothing. 50 intelligence agents without much intelligence all lied to bury the Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation. You said nothing. American citizens were taken hostage and held for a year in Gaza. You said and did nothing. Facebook admitted they conspired with the Biden administration to censor the truth. You said nothing. They cleaned the streets of San Francisco for the communist Chinese President Xi Jinping, but it still remains a shithole. You said nothing. When Fauci and the World Health Organization peddled COVID-19 virus lies and covered up the origins of where it actually began, you said nothing. When they sealed the January 6th commission files or lost them, quote unquote, you said nothing. You saw the corruption, the lies, the bad policy, the anti-American agenda. You said nothing. So please spare us your crocodile tears and all your fake hysteria now. For 4 years, you watched this country get run into the ground on all fronts, and you said nothing. Who were these people, just to name a few? Chuck Schumer, Jamie Raskin, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Jerry Nadler, Eric Swalwell, Maxine Waters, Lois Frankel, Wasserman Schultz, Ilhan Omar, Benny Thompson, he's a winner, Hakeem Jeffries, the worst of the worst, Dan Goldman, and the leader, Bernie Sanders, who went to Russia on his honeymoon, who talks about monies that are due poor people when he has millions and millions and millions in the bank and owns a number of houses, right? They're all liars. They're all anti-American. Where are they now? When will they speak up in favor of America?